Welcome to Biz Bites, brought to you by Com Together, helping businesses like yours build their brand through telling amazing stories to engage and grow audiences on multiple platforms. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Biz Bites. We're going to talk all things business growth today with someone who puts relationships front and center with all of the clients that he works with. And there's lots of, pieces to that puzzle that we're going to unlock a little bit. I'm fortunate to have known Ross Keating for a number of years now, and we've done some work together, and I thought he's going to be a great guest on the program. So Ross, welcome.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you very much for having me here. And yeah, it is a while since we first got to know each other, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly those years go by. And but I think it's been a fun ride to date, and I think there's going to be lots of things into the future. And I've always been an admirer of your work and the way and the thoroughness in the way that you think about the relationships. And we were chatting just before we started the podcast to say, how do I introduce you? Because even though I know your business, couldn't quite put the right words around it before. And obviously we talked and we came up with how we introduce yourself. But when you go into a more broader explanation of the depth and things that you cover, what do you tend to talk about?
I tend to talk about business growth, because most business owners and executives, what they're trying to do, they've got a successful business and they want to make it more successful. But what they're finding is that the business doesn't meet the expectations so much. They're frustrated to a degree that they throw the resources at it. They and the team are working all the hours they can, and it doesn't meet the expectations. So they don't meet those goals. But it's still a successful business, but they want it to be at the level that they want it to be. And running a business is many different parts. It's not just one thing. You can touch one thing that can impact it, but so often they're integrated and have a symbiotic relationship or a dependency relationship on it. So when I'm looking at it, I'm looking for business growth for them, but the pain point may be around somebody saying, hey, I need a marketing automation tool. Well, why? The question is always, why? We do everything. And that's where I come from, is you touch one thing and it's going to touch everything else. So I look at that, and it's about the business growth, the business sales, the productivity, the marketing, the efficiency, and the staff, or the employees, what they're doing and how they interact, and the technologies and the strategies.
I think it's interesting because thinking about when we first met, and I thought, at first I thought you were a business coach. And then I know you used to talk a lot, particularly about CRMs, and that's obviously central to a lot of the things that you're talking about. But I love this business growth specialty because it does talk more broadly. And I think you're right that too often, we both have it. Clients come to us for one reason, and actually when you scratch below the surface, there's a whole bunch of other things. They think they're in one place, but really there's often a whole bunch of other work that needs to go on before you get there. And it's amazing how much that can unlock. And in a sense, that can be overwhelming for people. So having someone that's there to guide them on that journey is really important.
Yeah, it's the guiding. I don't know their business like they know their business. Nobody will know it as well as they, and they experience the pain, and it's their baby. And it doesn't matter how long they've had it, how big it gets, whether it's a $100,000 business or it's a $30 million business. It's their baby. And they know the ins and outs, they know the squeaky wheels, they know the bits that are running smooth, but they often don't have the broad experience, and they can't see it objectively like we can. You and I, we go in and we look at it differently, and your guests all look at things at a different aspect of it. But one of the things that I do is I look at it across the business, across the different parts, to see what happens. But you got to solve the pain point. My first client, I got fired. That's my worst success. I got the client, and after about 6 or 7 months, because I was focusing on something that wasn't as important to them as the other thing that we were focusing on both, but I had an emphasis on one particular aspect, and he let me go, and I was really disappointed. Being my first client and all, and that was way back in what 2005, 2006, or it must have been 2006 when he let me go. And it still hurts today that I lost a client because I didn't do what was important to them. Solve that problem first, and you can look after all the other ones.
Yeah, and I think which raises a really important point, and I know this is again that's something that you and I share in common is the art of listening, because you the challenge I would have thought in that particular scenario was you may well have been right in the focus, but you needed to listen to where their pain point was and take them on a journey to understand what they needed to be focusing on first. And I think that whole idea of listening is something that is lost, and something that ultimately that's what you and I do in different ways for the businesses that we run. But ultimately we're trying to listen in to what people need and to take them on a journey.
That's it. And we go back to that marketing automation thing. The person put a Facebook post up on the one of the groups and said, which is the best marketing automation tool? And people came in, HubSpot, Constant Contact, Active Contact, you name it, they came up with it. And it was all good advice, good suggestions. But I went in and said, well, why did you want a marketing automation tool? How's it going to integrate with your sales process? What are the goals that you're expecting? What are the results you're going to expect that's going to improve? And they said, maybe we should have a discussion. Well, 8 years later, they're still a client and they don't have a marketing automation tool. They have a CRM that does a lot of, they use Nimble CRM, and it does group messaging, segmented messages database, but it's not automated. Okay. And they don't need it. They focus on a specialist market from that point of view.
Yeah, and I think that's really important advice. We can get sucked into technology very easy. Whatever the latest and greatest thing is, and certainly there's been a phase and continues to be around CRMs as a good example. Where, well, I've got to have a CRM and I've got to have this component to it, and I've got to have that to it. And I know I went through that process myself as a business sort of 18 months or so ago in determining that, and had people trying to sell me certain things, and I went, yeah, I don't really need that. And I think we can get swept up in, oh, well, we must have the latest and greatest. We're kind of fed that in advertising through lots of things. I mean, a good example is our phones, right? Most of us use a very small percentage of what our phones are capable of doing. And quite frankly, when you upgrade from one model to the next, you very rarely can tell much of a difference, right? And it doesn't really impact us hugely on a day-to-day basis. And yet, wow, well, our phone is 2 years old. We better get a new one. It's a very interesting relationship that we have with that, and trying to take people back to what really matters and scratch below the surface and what really is going to improve the business. As one of my business coaches are fond of saying, what's going to make the boat go faster? That's got to be the focus.
Yeah. What's going to make take it forward, go to that next level, reach your expectations. And I always say to clients, I can only do five things. I can increase their sales. I can help them generate more leads. I can help them close deals faster. I can get their productivity and efficiency up, and I get them more bang for their marketing buck. But ultimately, those are the 5 key drivers we're always looking to pull from that point of view. Everything relates back to that. The marketing relates to all of those. The customer service that they provide relates back to that. Their profitability relates back to that. Their expenses relate. So it's looking at those. Ultimately, that's what I'm looking to drive when I'm working on it. And the phones, the latest things, it's the basics, and that I find that they have trouble with. So often particularly businesses up to around about a million and a half, the owners and the directors often don't look at the profit and loss on a monthly basis in depth and actually watch it. They say the accountant produces it for us and we look at it, and but they don't actually look at it to see why it's there. What are the exception points? They're not working to a written plan. And if you listen to anybody, I don't know any of the big, it's 500 ASX 200 companies that don't work to a business plan. Why do they work to a business plan? Because they have to. We can't work off our head because we change it. I know my brain goes at 100 miles an hour and I think, oh, do this. How does it fit? You were talking before about how does it make the machine, the business move forward. And the other aspect that they often do is they want that bit of technology without understanding it, and they haven't looked at it overall. And that's the key thing. What's the basics of running the business?
Yeah, and I think, and I wanted to extend on that because we started off by talking about relationships as well as being a key to that and the basics of it. And that human element is something we can't underestimate. And I know that's a big factor. I mean, there's because the whole point of having a CRM in place, of course, is to get to know the people, but and try and engage with those people. But of course, you've also got to start with your own team, don't you? You've got to start with the people that you're working with and understanding them. And I think that's an important aspect that is undervalued by people, and they don't. If they do any kind of intuition in that space, it's often just in the recruitment process, and then that's kind of it. And they're not taking it any further with any real depth of understanding. And I know that's a subject that's close to you as well.
You Thanks for I like that lead in, but I'll take that one another step further. One of the basis behind that when I was forming the brand Nextree Business Growth Consultancy, I was working with Lauren Clement and doing it, and people said, why don't you use a farming analogy? Well, the farming analogy for most animals has a really bad ending, and so we don't want to think of one. I don't like to think of clients and people in my business network as animals, and two, there's something about a tree, and there's the key thing is that if you think about the roots of a business, you've got you as the owner of the business and the directors of the business and the executives. Then you've got the employees, like you said, but you've also got the business community, which from which you get your business, or suppliers and things like that. And then you've got your customers, and then you've got your family, your own family, and it's all those people are interacting either directly or indirectly. And if you can help, if you can understand the personality, what's important to those people, then you are going to be better able to influence them to more your way of thinking. Get them to do something, for employees, to get them to do what you want them to do because they see the benefit of it. Because that's how I'm looking at relationships, and we can explore that further as well.
Yeah, and I think that that whole idea of relationships is sometimes I think people just they gloss over it. And they're so involved in the nitty-gritty of an operational function that they forget about the people and understanding the kinds of people that you need to work with. And it's interesting, as we speak at the moment, I'm recruiting a staff member. And to the people I'm using to recruit, I have made it very clear that I don't want someone creative. And the simple reason for that is that I've got more than enough creative energy to to make up for most of the company, but we do have other creatives already in within the business. And I need someone of a particular type that is going to counter my creativity. And I think it is really important to understand those things, because sometimes going out and just recruiting the best person may not be the right person for you. And understanding how people that are already working for you, how you can get more out of them, or whether indeed maybe they're better off not in your organization. all of those things, or how they might transition and how you might need to work with them over a period of time. I think those things are really important. And it comes down to going with some kind of uh, understanding that's better than just a gut instinct on who the person is that you're actually dealing with.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why we've got all those psychometric tests, like Myers-Briggs, DISC, the Big Five, True Colors, very effective tools, and developed for roughly the purposes of employing the right people and getting them in the right teams and getting it through. And that is really great, but often that doesn't then, what we've got to do is translate how that interaction goes in day-to-day situations, and often we have to guess. And that's where with customer relationships it's really important. When I'm trying to use the term personal relationships, but people might think that I'm talking about dating and your home relationships. Well, those are important, okay, but I'm talking about, if you use customer relationships, the word already implies customer.
Yes.
But before that, as I mentioned, you've got employees, you've got business people, your suppliers, the people that you're using to create your creatives, and people who are trying to deliver your services. You've got those leads, you've got prospects, and you've got customers, and you've got past customers. And as you're interacting with them, what's important to them? What are their values? And that's why have the last 2 years been using a co-branded technology bank personality profile. And you know me, Anthony, I love to show my cards. It's the only type of cards that I play with besides my credit cards. Those 4 cards are 4 different personalities, and we've all made up of one personality, and of all 4 personalities, but 1 or 2 will be dominant. Just like in DISC and Myers-Briggs, you have those dominant personalities. But the thing about the Codebreaker bank methodology, it's been scientifically validated by independent university studies to actually predict buyer behavior in less than 90 seconds. The others take a little bit longer to that, and you can't ask your clients to do it. But I can ask you, Anthony, would you do me a favor? Just read these cards and the values on the cards and tell me, put them in order, which is most important to you, least important. And all of a sudden, there's 12 values on each card. And as soon as you move it to give me the cards back, I know roughly how to communicate with you to what's important to you on the type of things when I'm talking about a value. And then you can communicate, because I don't like using too much research. Salesforce.com found that 87% of salespeople are underprepared when they go out to talk to clients, and 66% of clients get turned off by the presentation. And one last statistic, I'll try not to use anymore. There's research done that found that 18%, if you presented to somebody and not in their personality type, then only 18% would buy from you. But if you changed your presentation to meet their personality type, then 82% would buy. And that's university studies again. Now, the thing behind that, Tony Robbins talks about it. Let your prospect determine your presentation. And that's what it's all about, is so your prospect in your case might be employees. How do they fit in the team? If you're going to have somebody that is into their key drivers are structure and personality and low risk, and don't interrupt my day because I've got my day planned out, you don't really want them answering the phone and being the receptionist, perhaps, unless they've got other things that can manage that, or there's another personality, their nurturing personality. But the key thing is, when you're talking to customers, you've got to present, because 67% turn off by it.
Hope you've been enjoying the conversation so far. We look forward to bringing you part 2 in the next episode of Biz Bites. Biz Bites is brought to you by ComTogether for all your marketing needs, so you can build your brand, engage audiences on multiple platforms. Go to comtogether.com.au, follow the links to book an appointment for a free consultation.